So that's the example of a tertiary industry, right? So using salmon as natural resources. So when you think about the economy, you think about the primary industry and secondary industry and tertiary industry, right? But for the manufacturing, the secondary industry, you pay the money and you eat and your stomach is full. The primary industry is also same story, but in terms of when you can buy and what kind of taste you can enjoy, and if you are a producer, when you can produce, when you can catch, it's also different story. But another question I ask, if you are a producer, which one you can make more money? To sell canned salmon or to sell fresh salmon? If you are a producer, which business is much better? Why?
Because in the process of manufacturing, there's a lot of value adding process. So the price, I would just like, as a producer, the price of fresh salmon and price of canned salmon as total, how do you say it? As total, not export, but yeah, total price range. I think as a producer, I could gain more by selling canned salmon.
Why?
Because well, when there's raw material and then there's manufactured goods, in the process of changing raw material to manufactured goods, there is a value adding process. So the value is different.
The very simple rule is you can sell this a lot more than that, because you can sell this anytime. You can sell this anytime, and you can produce this anytime. So mass production can be possible, but the natural salmon mass production cannot be possible. And you cannot also catch fresh salmon anytime. You have to wait. So in terms of making money, manufacturing industry is much better. But in terms of health issue, manufactured foods are not that healthy. Do you agree? Right? Do you agree? No? You don't agree? In terms of health benefits, the fresh natural type or manufactured type, which one is better? No difference. The fresh type is much better for your health benefit. So that's the example of the primary and secondary and tertiary industry. So you eat food, you eat salmon as food and natural form, but then in terms of access to natural fresh salmon, there's some limitation, and it's called natural law limitation. But then for the manufactured salmon, there's no limitation. It's already getting away from the natural law. Once natural form turned to manufactured form, it's somehow breaking the natural law. So in terms of accessing to manufactured products, you have a freedom. Whether you are a consumer, whether you have a producer, you have a freedom. You have a freedom from the natural law. But then it gives you some bad impact upon your nature, your body. If you consider your body as nature, and it's the tertiary industry, it shows the image, or it shows some sceneries or knowledge, and they acquire the knowledge. And that's the example of tertiary industry. And that's the real exam, that's the real museum in Sapporo, Hokkaido, which opened in 1984, Japanese, they love salmon, like Northern Europeans, like Finnish. The Japanese people, they love salmon. I think Korean people love the tuna, not tuna, the 고등어, mackerel. Korean people, the mackerel. But Japanese people, they love salmon, and there's a museum, the real museum, located in Sapporo in Hokkaido. So in terms of making money, because the economy is basically producing, consuming, making money, you know, and using nature as a raw material and energy power, so on. So you have to think of many things in one connected system. So for the tertiary industry, the products are produced do not have certain products. It's about emotion and knowledge, image, technology. It's about your feeling. That's all the components of tertiary industry. But then you still pay for the money, for the knowledge, for the emotion, for the pleasure, and so on. Okay? So we can think about the industry and the environment in terms of breaking down the primary and secondary and tertiary industry. And can you make one example like this yourself? I give you 5 minutes. And can you make one example yourself, like a primary industry and secondary industry, tertiary industry? Thinking about any one component of nature, can you make example yourself? I give you 5 minutes. Okay, maybe 3 persons share examples, primary, secondary, and tertiary industry with us. 서정?
Maybe pork as the primary industry, sausages as the secondary industry, and the animal farm where the kids go for their field trip and see the pigs and the cows can be the tertiary industry.
Excellent, excellent. Right, great. So raising pigs, right? To provide the meat can be considered primary industry. And then sausage made of pigs, it can be called the secondary industry. And then the pigs farm as experience the pigs. So kids can visit like during weekend to learn how pigs grow, you know, how long do they sleep, you know, how much they eat, how long do they survive and die, and when they die, so on and so on. So to collect knowledge about pigs. Excellent, excellent. Okay, 현직.
My example is about trees. Corporate that participate in the primary industry, lodging the trees and sell them. It is the primary industry, and manufacturers use the trees for making many products. For example, chair and desk and etc. And some company make artificial make forest to adequate for straw. In Korean 삼림욕, I cannot make in
bath in forest
yes,
bath.
Forest bath. I think it is considered tertiary industry.
Tertiary industry, excellent, right? 산림욕, it's the forest bath It began in Japan, so they have the 산림욕 in Japanese. I don't know in what way the 산림욕, but the same the Chinese characters. So when you walk, taking walk in the forest, so you receive full of oxygen, fresh oxygen, and your emotions, your body feeling is rising up. But then as the economy, you probably enter the forest, you probably pay the money. Very good. It's an example of the tertiary industry, right? Mm-hmm. Excellent. And Li Wei Lilo. Mm-hmm.
Primary industry
Water.
Yeah. So the secondary industry would be companies that use water and sell it as bottled water.
Mm-hmm.
And the tertiary industry would be, for example, in Singapore we have this a museum kind of where they teach how the desalination process works. So, for example, we have water catchment areas in Singapore where we collect rain and we reuse the water to become drinking water. Yeah, so that's kind of a tertiary industry because it's used to educate people.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so it's all about the economy, right? And the economy is totally related to the natural environment in terms of the primary and secondary and tertiary industry, right? Okay, good. So now we think about another thing in relation to the primary industry, secondary, tertiary. Natural resources and technology and wealth. Natural resources and technology and wealth. Technology is also a very important component understanding human society, particularly for understanding the economy. So when you say a country is rich, what does that mean? What does that mean? When a country is rich, what does that mean? Normally, we consider a country is rich. They can produce a lot of products, particularly manufactured products. That means they have a lot of good technology, because when you transform nature into manufactured, you need technology. That's the fundamental thing. That's the fundamental component you need to transform nature into manufactured form. Okay? Think about pig, just pig body. Any human society, any human beings, they can grow pigs. But to produce sausage is another story. Not any country can produce sausage. You need the technology to produce sausage, and you need the factory machines and factory and so on and so on. And to develop technology to produce sausage, so to transform from pig body to sausage, you need human capital, particularly those who have brains, those who are educated. And also you need a lot of money. Your country has a lot of money to invest on research and development. Because normally you have a lot of experiment, research to develop a technology, particularly high technology, for example, to produce like smartphones, laptops, like very manufactured, very sophisticated manufactured things. You need a very high technology. And to produce high technology, your country has to invest a lot of money on research and development. Right? So, and those products, those manufactured products, which are put into very high technology, when they go to the market, normally the price is much higher. Much higher. Think about like a TV compared to the smartphone as a commodity which you have to pay to get. Which one is much more expensive? A TV or a smartphone? Depends, right? or a desk or smartphone? Which one is much more expensive? A smartphone, right? Uh-huh. So to transform nature into manufactured form, you need the technology, but then also technology in terms of high technology, high sophisticated, or just average normal level that decide the price of the products when they go to the market as a commodity. So the technology is a fundamental thing to transform nature into manufactured thing, and the Industrial Revolution is the very historical event that brought technology into human history. And normally who experienced the Industrial Revolution, they considered developed world and or rich countries like North America or Western European countries. They experienced the industrialization, which means those society transforming from agricultural into industrial society. They had longer years. They had much longer years compared to the agricultural society. And normally, those society who can produce only agriculture, only the products that belong to the primary industry, they considered poor countries or less developed world. Those countries who can produce only the products that consist of the primary industry, they are considered poor countries, and they are considered less developed country. Do you agree? Wanshi, do you agree? Okay, can you give me an example of countries who are dominantly agricultural society and also can be considered as poor countries and less developed countries?
Well, many countries in South America or Africa
Uh-huh.
are still in plantation economy,
Mm-hmm.
and they sell mostly agricultural products, such as coffee or cacao,
Uh-huh.
and those countries are considered underdeveloped
Yes.
in terms of like,
Yeah, underdeveloped or less developed or developing, they're all the same terms to refer to the countries who can produce only the products that belong to the primary industry. So another thing, if you put them into in another way, means those countries are lack of sophisticated technology. So they are not able to produce nature products into manufactured, particularly into the sophisticated manufactured products. But then why they are poor? Because the products, when they go to the market, the prices are different, right? Think about the price for a tomato, one tomato and one computer, right? Think about the price for one cabbage and one pair of pants. The price is different. But think about the human labor. To produce a pair of pants and to produce tomatoes, what kind of labor are used? What kind of human labor are used? Mental? Physical? Emotional? To produce a pair of pants and to produce a tomato? A box of tomatoes? Normally the physical labor are used, right? Physical labor are used. But to produce a pair of pants, you need some more technology. But what I'm saying is, so you have to think about many things to think about the economy. When you say a country is rich, in what sense? In what sense it is rich and why it is considered as rich and so on. What about Korea? Up to the 60s, the majority of South Korean populations, they are all involved in the primary industry, right? South Korean people, up to the late 60s, most of the South Korean people, they are involved in the primary industry. So which means they either raised agricultural products, or they fished, or they raised cattle up to the 60s. And up to that time, Korea was poorer than the Philippines in terms of GNP. In terms of the GNP, South Korea was poorer than the Philippines. But then from the 70s, the rapid industrialization transformation, that means people who are involved in, who used to grow vegetables, who used to fish, who raised the cattle, they gave up their jobs and they became factory workers. And they moved to the big cities like Seoul, Busan, and so on. But then the GNP is rapidly rising up because the products you produce in South Korea up to the 60s, like tomatoes or cabbages and so on, in terms of the commodity you buy by paying money, it's smaller compared to the microwaves and TVs and refrigerators. Those all household goods is a very big example of secondary industry. And also when South Korea transformed the economy into the secondary manufacturing industry, Korea began making those kind of products, and they sold the kind of products. That's why the money making is a very good money making, and then the GNP is rising up. And in the late 80s, Korea was able to hold the Olympics, just 15 and 20 years after the industrialization. Right? So we can think about the economy, making money, and then the relation to the natural environment. So I'm keeping telling you that the economy, thinking economy in relation to the natural environment is important, and also technology and money making, they are also considered to think about the economy in relation to the natural environment. Okay, shall we have a break up to 12 o'clock? Okay. The primary industry, you use a physical labor, like the direct contact with nature. You use a physical labor, so your whole body has a contact with the nature. But then once the nature transformed the manufactured thing, you use physical and mental labor, because you need the technology, and to produce technology, the mental labor, the brain power are needed. And when nature uses it as a visionary and knowledge-based and imaginary form, the human labor, either mental or emotional labor, are to be used. Now we think about sustainable production and consumption. In the beginning for this talk, I mentioned the non-renewable resources, and then I said, if your production work based upon the non-renewable resources, your economic activities one day have to stop. So the sustainability is the alternative paradigm for doing the economy in the 21st century, particularly facing the non-renewable resources. Many economic activities, many manufactured products, they are based upon non-renewable resources, particularly using energy power. And next week we'll talk about energy. So sustainability is about keeping the economy, keeping the economic activities, considering the natural laws and considering the sustainable provision of natural resources. And that is the new idea for the 21st century doing the economy on a global level. And that's the new idea proposed in 1992 in the Rio Summit, organized by United Nations and Environmental Program. So sustainable production, I explained already. So you have to take care of you have to consider the natural laws, and you have to pay attention to the change and the continuity of nature that you use for natural resources for producing certain products. And sustainable consumption, what is sustainable consumption? As a consumer, if you do say, I do consume sustainably, what does that mean? Normally, the scholars, they proposed sustainable consumption in 4 ways. One is consuming less. You consume less, so less amount of products. That's considered sustainable consumption. So consumption and production is a very interlinked, very closely interlinked. And if you consume less, that means you produce less. Your country produces less. If you, as a consumer, you consume less, the products, they probably also to be reduced. And that means natural resources to use for manufacture things to be reduced. And that means they can save the amount of natural resources for the next term, so you can guarantee sustainability. And consuming differently, you buy products who have some environmental standards, some consideration of sustainability. So you buy different products, they have high environmental standards and so on. So that's consuming differently. And you're consuming responsibly. And you consume ethically. So consume less. You buy less, and that also means that you can reduce the amount of waste. So if you buy less, and that means you produce less waste, and it gives less negative impact upon natural environment. You consume differently. You challenge the predominant ways of consuming, and that gives all full consideration about saving the environment, and that's about consuming differently. And there's some kind of terms. It's like, for example, pleasant inconvenience. So the way you consume, it's not much convenient, but in terms of environmentally thinking, it's a quite pleasure. So that means enjoying pleasure from being inconvenient. So if you lead that kind of way of life, probably it's quite inconvenient, but then you can have, in terms of environmental consideration, you can have more pleasure. Because basically the manufactured-based contemporary society that comes with the technology, it's all about how to make human life convenient. How to make life convenient. So technology, when you analyze the words that all about advertising new products, the key idea is giving you pleasure and giving you convenience. That's the 2 ideas of manufacturing products in contemporary society. But then they don't say that much about environmental impact and environmental consideration. But if you only emphasize convenience and pleasure and not much considering the environment, it gives you quite significant negative impact upon natural environment. So pleasant inconvenience is about you somehow give up your inconvenience, but then in terms of the impact of your consumer styles upon natural environment, you can receive some pleasure feeling coming from for taking care of the environment. And consuming responsibly, you choose products that have low impact, low emission level of CO2, and choose organic products and using shopping bags. So you take responsibility for saving the environment. It's the consuming responsibly. and you extend the duration for consumption and no leftover. So it's you take a responsibility for the environment from your consumption habits, consumption styles. And consuming ethically, you choose products that are made through ethically right process. What does that mean? The products that are produced through ethical right process, what does that mean? The ethical products, they refer to products that are produced through ethically right process. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like the farming industry, a lot in America, they inject like chemicals and hormones into animals so that they grow quicker so that you can kill them faster. So I guess that would be considered ethically correct.
Mm.
Instead, maybe like raising them and waiting until they're big enough and then killing them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Considered ethical.
Sure. And also like labor force, like using child labor illegally, children using children as a labor force, but them not paying properly. Basically, using children for labor force is an illegal thing. So you consider natural environment and labor force ethically, and whether those products that are made through that kind of conservation, ethical conservation for human labor and also natural environment. So sustainable production and consumption is a new idea that guide the economic activities in the 21st century that takes consideration seriously natural environment. Okay? And also the consumer citizenship is an important concept. Consumer is not being just passive, the subject just to choose products in a market. Consumer has a kind of political power who can control the production sphere. So if you choose sustainable products, which I suggest, like you can consume responsibly and ethically and less and differently. If you take this kind of lifestyles, and probably there's some change can be made in the production process. Maybe producers, they pay attention to consumers' needs. And if there's some kind of consumer movement, the movement organized by consumers, and they have a kind of political power, and they have a power to control the production process in terms of pushing the producers, paying attention to their production practices, exerting upon negative impact upon the natural environment. That's the term for considering consumer citizenship. So consumer, just the people who buy things and consume and just throwing away, but consumer have a power to control the production process by making different choices, different way of living lifestyles, and that push the producers to consider consumers who have a high environmental standards in their way of living, in their way of choosing products. So, for example, like in Korea, there's a kind of the stores like organic which sell organic products, right? Organic products. It can be quite expensive, more expensive than the normal products, but you can find many stores in Seoul, also some other areas in Korea, and also in some other parts in Korea. But more and more people choose environmentally considered products, and they push producers. In terms of producing products, they're probably motivated to produce more products. They have high environmental consideration. So environment and economy is very interrelated. So if human economic activities pay attention to the environment, the natural law, to observe the natural law, and particularly to consider the sustainability, sustainable provision of natural resources for supporting the human economic activities. It's a win-win game. And also you can prolong your economic activities in the many years to come. So consumers' roles also is important, right? Consumers' roles is important. So it's called the consumer citizenship. Consumer citizenship. Okay, now we think about waste generation and management and in the environment. So how you can define waste? Like when you say, oh, it's a rubbish, it's a, how you can define rubbish and waste? Waste one day, it was a very precious natural form. It was, whether it's a tree, whether it's a desk, whatever you use, goods, certain these kind of things. When you choose them, it was a very precious thing. But then when you detach, you do not give any value, whether it's use value, symbol value, whatever your value attached to, when you choose certain products from market, one day it becomes waste, and you want to throw them away, right? Right. Nobody use the product they buy for forever until they die. Some people, they just use 1 month, 1 year, and 3 years, 6 months, 6 years, 10 years, right? And now the product, thousand products in very availability, it's everywhere, like online, offline market, so many different markets. Even now globally, you buy the products directly from Singapore and United States, France, and so on and so on. Global markets, not the local markets, domestic markets, but also the global market. Everywhere, too many thousand products. But then one day it becomes all waste. But one day the waste becomes waste. If they go somewhere very safely, that's all good business. We don't have to worry. But then when the products become waste, they go to either underground, they go back to the natural environment where they come from originally. So they go under the ground and they go up to the air. Right? So people have all different habits. People have all different cultural patterns. Like some people want to upgrade the cars, particularly men. They want to upgrade the car like every 3 years, and they give them very big pleasure for living life. And some people want to upgrade the smartphones every 2 years. How quickly they come? The new smartphone, the cycle of a new smartphone. 1 year, the new version of a smartphone, new version of a laptop, every 3 years or every 2 years. Like Apple phone, iPhone, like now it's 7, 8. The cycle of new products upgrading, how many years, how quickly they come to the market? Every 2 years, every 3 years, every 1 year? And some people, they're probably beginning from the 1, Apple 1, and now they're waiting for 8, version 8. So want to upgrade. But then one day they will become waste one day. So I define waste in this way. Nature, it turns into no value for humans. So when human beings attach value to nature to make a smartphone, they value, but then one day nature turns into a no value and it becomes waste. And you have to think about waste generation, waste treatment. So in terms of waste generation, waste treatment, so what kind of waste are produced for a country? And how they treat waste, that's the key important thing. So if you want to know more, if we go to the article at the end of the course book, now it's a waste treatment is a big issue because now too many products and people want to upgrade their products regularly, which is a quite shorter cycle. The waste treatment is a big issue, the global issue. And if you go to the article, comparative analysis of solid waste management in 20 cities, it has very good information, but it doesn't include the how to treat waste. Waste is a big issue. So I just mentioned waste treatment, waste generation in relation to the environment. So you think about types of waste, whether it's solid and non-solid, and where the waste come from, whether it's a household or industrial, and whether it's waste can be burned or not burned, and whether it's hazardous, dangerous or non-dangerous, and recyclable and non-recyclable, and degradable and non-degradable. This kind of knowledge for making differentiation among waste, which used to be products. You have to make a judgment whether it can be burned or it can be degradable or non-degradable, whether it can be hazardous when they burned, whether it produce some chemical, very toxic components. You have to decide, you have to make a judgment. This is a very good knowledge, particularly for waste treatment properly. And now in Korea, it's a kind of rule. You have to make separation, the waste garbage into separate bins, right? And that's all help your local government to make recycling, your waste to make recycle. And to reduce the amount of landfill to be used for hiding your waste, and to reduce the amount of facilities, the number of facilities to burn your waste. So these are the good example, the good criteria to judge what kind of waste you produce, your household, your industrial places. And it's all good criteria to judge for making separation, to have a good recycling program, you know. So the waste, they go back to natural environment. They go back to natural environment at the end to bury under the ground and to be burnt and going up to the air, right? Is there any other way of treating waste rather than to bury and to burn? There's other way of treating waste rather than to bury and to burn? Think about, right? Think about it. We need some innovative ways of treating waste because now too many waste. And the problem is the shortage of land, and also in terms of facilities, landfilling and then the burning facilities, people hate that kind of facility to be located into your yards. Nobody wants to have this kind of facilities in their local places, you know. But they have to be somewhere. And it's also environmental justice issue when this kind of waste treatment facilities to be located somewhere, where to be gone. Nobody wants to have this kind of facilities around their residential places, around their local places. But when nobody hates, when do they go? Because when the waste are being buried, the soils, the areas of landfilling becoming very unhealthy. The soils become very unhealthy and smelly. right? Waste are very smell. What kinds of waste? It smells and very ugly and so on, so on. And when they burn, you cannot see, but then still on the air, and then it has some very dangerous chemical components on there. And when you breathe, it affects your the health system, your breathing system. So once again, modern contemporary society, the produced products turned nature into manufactured forms, combining with technology. When they, as a product form, probably looking very good, looking fancy, but when they turn to into waste, it's another story. It becomes very dangerous because when you transform nature into manufactured form, you combine with a lot of chemical things. So, but then when they have to be treated as a waste, either to be buried or to be burned, that gives all the chemical things that are hidden in the manufactured form, they somehow to be revealed and bring out some negative impacts upon the natural environment. So thinking about the production and consumption process in relation to the environment, and particularly the waste treatment in relation to the environment. It's just one cycle. So before, just people think about the production only, thinking about only enlarging GMP and getting out of the feeling hungry. But now you have to think about considering natural environment, the production and consumption and waste treatment. So here's some statistical information for the case of Korea, and landfill size and remained, and amount of waste buried in 2008. And I just can give you the information for the remained landfill size. It's about half left. It's somehow it's about 10 years back, so as of 2008. Probably now it's much smaller. And especially for the case of Seoul, like a big size city, mega cities, having a lot of people and a lot of consumer products, and that means a lot of waste. And you have to think about in which part of nature I used landfill to treat waste coming from the Seoul citizens. And then it's an incinerator, so facilities to burn waste. There's a public-based and private-based, and there are more in Korea. There are more private-based incinerator facilities. A lot more private-based. So individuals have own incinerator facilities compared to the government-owned incinerator facilities. I mentioned this a lot more in detail next week when we think about the energy. So, and then it's a new idea of waste management. Rubicon is based in the United States, and this person is a very famous person, Nate Morris. So he became famous with the idea of treating waste environmentally friendly. And the company name is Rubicon. And he built this company and bring out brilliant ideas about treating waste environmentally friendly, particularly about recycling, how to recycle. So he connects companies. He had, from many thousand companies, they probably have a lot of waste. And then he gives advices how to recycle those waste environmentally friendly. It's a very good business. So it's also emerging new business, to treat waste, to treat waste. Because if you think about the hunting-gathering society, the types of waste and the amount of waste compared when we consider about the hunting-gathering society and agricultural society, industrial society, post-industrial society, the types of waste and also amount of waste are very different. But now the problem is too many waste, but then the land, the nature, the land, either to be used the landfill or the atmosphere, it's difficult to find. And also either to be burned or either to be buried, it gives a negative impact upon natural environment. So you have to think about when waste is treated, how to avoid negative impact upon natural environment. You have to think about, right? How to avoid negative impact upon natural environment when you treat waste. So they come up with very brilliant ideas, particularly for recycling. So which means those waste turning into either raw materials and energy resources for making another new product. So that's the recycling waste. You can find many recycled products in the market. Sometimes there's some notice in the this product is made from recycled material and right. Mm-hmm. And normally it's cheaper, right? So that means the material used to be waste, but then it turned to another cycle for making another product. So that's the way of reducing the amount of waste, and that's the reducing the amount of waste either to be buried or to be burned. And it's less reducing the negative impact upon natural environment by the waste we treated. And you can think about this sustainability and waste management. One is no waste. When you consume, no waste left. When you consume, nothing left. So this is the example. It's you drink cappuccino, not cappuccino. It's what is that? You drink espresso. But then the cup that has espresso, it's also eatable. So nothing left. That's the new concept for no waste when the consumption is finished. Like a cone ice cream cone. When you eat ice cream, and you can eat also cone also, so nothing left. So no waste. That's the new idea of consuming, thinking about waste. So it's a new idea, it's a new idea because now too many waste, too many products and too many consumption, too many waste. So it's a new idea. So think about it's a new business, new idea. When consumption is finished, no waste is left. Very fancy, right? It can spread to many other products or only for the food product. This kind of rule, no waste left. This kind of rule can be applied to all the products that humans produce. What about hats or clothes, What do you think? no waste society can be possible? No? No waste society can be possible? What do you think?
I think it's impossible if if you want to throw your shoes or you don't want to wear it anymore, I don't think you can put it into another use. Shoes, for example. Clothes. I don't know what can it use for except wearing it. So I don't think everything can be totally consumed.
Okay. No waste society is impossible? Possible? 원식? No waste society. When you finish consumption, when you finish consume certain products and nothing left, so nothing to throw away.
I don't think no waste society is possible. For example, electronics, they have these, for example, batteries. They use lithium-ion batteries, and those things are pretty much kind of hard to recycle. They have to be disposed on their own. So if we consider those things, I don't think no waste society is possible.
Okay, so maybe only specific to certain products, like for only eating products can be applied. The concept of no waste. Killa?
I feel like it is kind of impossible, but it can be improved on what we have now. Because I think there's a lot of like unnecessary like packaging and stuff. Like I saw in like supermarket, they like cut up apples and package in plastic, and then they more plastic. So I think if people stop being lazy, then we can improve on what we are.
Sure. Okay. What about the way law, right?
I think it's about consumer choice.
Consumer choice.
I think there are alternatives that we can use to reduce our waste, but most people find it inconvenient. So it's very hard to change the mindset of people to use these methods of better waste management.
But think about that's the eatable cup for with the espresso. It's somehow now on the market. And also many companies are considering that kind of concept. But even if it's a no waste possible, reducing the amount of waste when the consumption is finished, that's another idea to push the people to consider. And another idea is no packaged food product. So, for example, if you go to the market, supermarket, or just market, the many products are packaged, right? Sometimes it's over-packaged. But then there's a concept for the no packaged. No packaged. Everything comes with the packaged, right? The products, they're covered with the package. But there's also a concept for no packaged for products. So which means you can reduce significant amount of waste because there's no package. Would you not mind buying products without package? For example, like a phone without package, just phone. Would you mind, or you feel not good, or not good?
No.
Okay. So that's another new concept. So in terms of the human society evolve, change, like from hunting, gathering, blah, blah, and then industrial, and now it's too many waste. another challenge for human society, for human civilization. So you need another new idea. If you want to keep having pleasure from consuming, buying new things and enjoying convenience, you need a new idea to reduce the waste. And you need a new concept for lifestyle. And if you go to a TED Talk, yeah. I'm a big fan of TED Talks. And then there's a new concept for making lifestyle, considering the nature environment, like a no waste lifestyle, reducing waste, significantly in everyday life. And then, but then I ask a question. You have money, and you have the freedom to buy and to have a pleasure, using certain products. But then when you buy products, do you consider also one day it becomes waste and what to do with that? Do you have also that kind of consideration? Yeah. So that's another way of awakening consumers, like when products turn to waste, what to do with that, What to do with that. So if you visit YouTube, there's a website. There are many new innovative concepts for reducing waste in living modern contemporary society. So everything now is all on the list. You can buy all things that if you want, It's just offer there. Everything you can grab if you have money, so on, so on, so on. But then you can enjoy your pleasure. But then you have to also consider when the products turn to useless form, turn to waste. What to do with that? What to do with that? Anybody have visited any landfills in Seoul in your school years or landfills? Where do all the waste go? All the waste generated from the soil, where do they go? Anybody has visited those places? Either landfills or the incinerator facilities. Do you want to go? Do you want to visit? No? Will that shock you? Will that, if you visit the landfills or incinerators, and you are so shocked with too many, too much amount of waste, and that will somehow change your mentality? No? No? Wonyoung? Have you ever visited any landfills in Seoul or around Gyeonggi area? Or? No, haven't. Are you interested?
Actually, not interested.
You are not interested, okay. But will they make you some change to choose certain product or to buy product, or will they make you some change? To visit certain landfills and incinerator facilities, and being shocked with too many waste and so on. Will they make you some change in selecting some product or?
Maybe if I visit and realize the reality of waste management, I may be shocked and what they change in my mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you consider you are environmentally friendly consumer? No?
Probably interested in it, but not that really trying to
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. So that's the topic for today, right? So I was trying to say that economy is a very fundamental social institution for human life. We need to work, but then through working, we produce certain things. But then to do that work, to do that thing, we need nature. But then once all the consumption finished, making money finished, and then all the products become waste, it goes to the natural environment. But then all the negative impact that the waste generation treatment give to natural environment, it also affect human society. Whether it's your breathing system, and whether it's to your soil quality. So it's all connected, right? It's all connected. But we only look at one aspect, But then you need to broaden your view and to see the whole thing. So that's the maybe new thing to do. New thing to do, like for changing our mentality, to change our mentality in considering the economy and the environment within one term, within one framework, to change our mentality to reduce amount of waste. So if you that's the already in the market. It's called the Lavichas Edible Coffee Club. Lavichas Edible Coffee Club, and probably now some people they are working on this kind of the idea, no waste society. One day, maybe after post-industrial society, the new society we are thinking about is a no waste society, and people working on this kind of products. And there's in German supermarket, there's a real the exercise, real practice that if you go to the supermarket in German, there's no product. No packaged, no overpackaged, and nothing. You want to watch this now, or you want to watch this yourself? Maybe this one? Interesting. I find this interesting. I need to volume up. Sorry, just only the. No, not this one. And sorry, I cannot control the volume. No? Okay. So somewhere in the globe, there are kind of experiments with the idea of no waste society, thinking about no waste society, where there's producing edible products, edible things, and whether it's a product without a package. There's some experiments somewhere in the earth, on the globe. And thinking about yourself also, if you some like 100 years after, if you live the no waste society, in what way your life will change. So the current form is like this, an increasing rate of. So think about some innovative ways of for the concept of the no waste society. And it's alternative indicators for the economy. When you consider for the economy, you only think about the product, the production size. So GMP, it means all the products that your country produce a year. And the higher GMP, that means the richer your country. But then we do not consider in what way those products impact upon natural environment. You only think about the money, the products, how much money you by selling those products, and whether it's a country rich or not. But then you don't consider the rich country, how much natural resources use, and how much waste to produce. You don't consider that much, right? But now it's a new indicators, alternative indicators for the economy. Environmental impact of production and consumption and waste treatment, that also should be considered to talk about the economy. We only talk about one side, whether this country is rich or not, whether this country is a higher GMP or not. But then we have to think about another side of the economy, whether that kind of order making products impact upon what kind of impact, how much impact, we have to also think about that other aspect of the economy, right? Because it's all the whole one system, and particularly if your economy wants to continue sustainably, your natural environment should be sustainable, should be healthy also. If you want to economy is to be healthy and sustainable, your natural environment should be healthy and sustainable. So we have to think of the both sides, right? Okay. So it's beyond environmental friendly, and then we have to be innovative, bring up smarter ideas, to think about production and consumption and generation in relation to natural environmentally. So new ideas and new technologies and new lifestyle changes, having well-balanced relationship with the natural environment. So that's the conclusion. The economy is intricately related to natural environment, and natural environment plays a significant role for the economy as a provision repository for providing raw materials and energy resources. And once the products are lost their use value and become waste, natural environment function as a depository for bearing waste and absorbing gases from incinerating waste. So therefore, to keep natural environment healthy is to keep human society healthy in terms of securing economic activities. So that's the conclusion for today. Okay? And next week we'll think about energy and society. And I also mentioned some waste issue, particularly the article, the waste treatment in 20 cities. Next week, somehow briefly.